Good morning, good evening. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing, we wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. The background's a little unusual for today, but it's really hard to come up with an idea that represents crime. Superheroes originally fought criminals, and now they fight super criminals because they need a bigger threat than, Johnny Desperado with his six-shooter trying to rob little old ladies. But crime statistics, interestingly, have fallen over the past 10 years. That's right, all kinds of crime, from nonviolent drug offenses right up to the big rapes and murders and all that sort of thing. Now, serial killers have been on the decline for a while, and that's because with modern technology, with databases, and with modern investigative techniques, they usually catch on to a pattern much quicker. But if you'll notice, politicians lately are not running on a platform of being tough on crime. That's because it's tough to be tough on crime when the laws are working. Since 2010, so we've seen a couple presidents come and go. We've seen a couple prime ministers come and go. In Canada and the United States, crime is down almost 20% as an average. Now, this, of course, doesn't include the statistics for 2020 and 2021. That data takes a while to filter through the system. Even a census, the data takes a little bit to be processed. But still, over a 10-year period to see a drop in crime is rather a good sign. Now, of course, the question is, why? Some people are saying it's because of the increase in the standard of living. Well, I think by now it's quite clear Silverlight's stance on the standard of living generally going down. Some people do get better off. Some people do get promoted. Some people wind up winning their lottery, having their dream job, and making it like bandits. And all the power to those people. I take nothing away from their work. But generally speaking, things are getting harder and harder to afford. You need to work more and more and put in more and more of your free time just to make ends meet. The number of people, how do I say this without getting anybody in trouble? I'm just going to say the underground economy is flourishing at present. There are so many people with side gigs and doing things to make money. I mean, on eBay, Amazon, you name it. And while it's not officially underground economy, I'm going to lump that in with Uber drivers, with people who clean houses, and general handymen. And the only reason I'm choosing to lump them together is because, as a general rule, they don't pay taxes. That's not 100% the case, and there are definitely those people that run their businesses 100% on the table, but you give them cash, and they're going to give you that standard discount. And I don't blame them. If you're going to come over and clean my house, I mean, you absolutely deserve your money. And while the Silverlight Show wholly supports taxation, as long as that taxation is being spent on the benefit of the people, he also understands there's reasons to go around the government from time to time. There's some jobs that just need to get done. The interesting thing about lower crime rates is that this occurs at the exact same point as the social justice warriors have exploded. Now, I'm not going to say anything negative about the social justice warriors. They have their place in society, and that place is mostly to complain. But at the same token, they mean well. They're kind of an outgrowth of the 1960s equal rights movement, except gone militant. Ultimately, it's hard to fault them for what they're trying to do. Social justice. We all want social justice. We all want equality. Nobody listening to the Silverlight Show is saying, I am better than X, Y, or Z. No, we're all equal. We all deserve to be treated equally. I don't think anybody would argue that point. But at the same token, these people are going to out of their way to point out so-called microaggressions. Like today, the 8-year-old, wrote out one of those little phrases that's supposed to trick people if you read it forward and backwards. And it contained the word idiot. And just for entertainment, old Silverlight, being the inquisitive sort that he is and finding all this information, looked it up. Well, idiot, moron, all those expressions that I'm sure everyone who's listening has used at one point or another are considered slights and offenses. That's right. It's considered rude to use that to other people. Well, yeah, that's kind of the reason why you call somebody an idiot or a moron. I'm not using that expression as a term of affection. But this kind of led me down another rabbit hole, one that honestly confuses me. I was looking at the university. Oh my goodness, it's a big... Was it Duke? Was it Yale? Oh my goodness, I need to start writing this stuff down. But anyways, it was one of the big universities you would know, especially if their football team played on a Saturday night. And they were actually expressing language choice. Now, most of it made sense to me. For example, you don't call lesbians gay. Okay, I understand that. But you also can't call gay people homosexual. And I struggle with this because homosexual is a scientific term. It involves two people of the same sex engaging in intercourse. Yet this is suddenly declared offensive by a university. Now, I know some of you out there think universities are left-leaning Ivy League institutions. Having been in a university, I can assure you there are plenty of right-leaning people within them, in academic positions and in other positions. But they felt the need to come out with this document saying that the scientific term to describe a particular preference is not acceptable to use. Hey, I'm on board. I shouldn't be calling people idiots. I shouldn't be calling people morons. As much as it bugs me when they pass me in traffic or they do something dumb. I haven't looked up dumb yet. Please don't take that one from me. But when I'm using a scientific term and I'm getting shot down by this, quite frankly, hypocritical agenda, it would make people feel very repressed. And this is perhaps the real secret behind the reduced crime rates. Because there are these self-appointed whistleblowers everywhere, because there are these public shamers and denouncers who take it upon themselves to be the guardians of the righteous code, maybe they're the reasons why criminals don't get started, because they're thinking, I know I could steal this car, I could drink and drive, I could do whatever you're going to do. I don't want to go down the list of crimes because some of the crimes just get beyond what I'm prepared to deal with psychologically at the present time. But perhaps that bit of social shame being added in is somewhat of a deterrent. In which case, can we really say social justice people are doing a bad thing? It's an interesting thought. I don't think it really weighs into the consciousness of committing a crime. I don't believe that does work. But the unconscious side, yes. See, when somebody goes out to commit a crime, most of the time it's a crime of passion. It's something done in the heat of the moment. We've all been there. You're out, you're excited. You say, hey, today there's nobody else on the road. I'm going to take a different way home. That's not a crime, but at the same token, maybe you're going the wrong way down a one-way street because you're not familiar with the area. Maybe you've had an extra drink at the bar or even at home and, I need donuts. I'm going to stop by and pick up donuts on the way home. Either way, you're committing a crime. And there's all sorts of examples like that. And maybe subconsciously the fact that these vigilantes are out there ready to jump on everybody and denounce them is starting to prey on people's minds. Now, I'm really looking forward to reviewing this again in a couple years. Yes, Silverlight does plan to be around for the long term. Because, like I said, the data for 2020 and 2021 is not out yet. Now, we know that there was a rather large riot in the U.S. Capitol. with everybody who was locked down and for months, there had to be occasions where the police found people out with no good reason to be out. And I'm curious to see how many people really maintain their quarantine. But that information won't be available for quite some time. In the meantime, as a society, let's pat ourselves on the back that we're not committing crimes. Now, it's okay to question authority, and civil disobedience is a right. But civil disobedience means simply not engaging with the government. It doesn't mean going out and disobeying necessarily. Gandhi simply sat down where he wasn't invited. It was peaceful. The way people have returned to riots in the past 10 years shows there's a lot of tension floating around in the air. I can remember not so long ago when there were plenty of protests, but they were peaceful. When I was in university in the mid to late 90s, the professors went on strike. Now, they shut down every lane into the university, and all they did is they stopped every student coming in, and they would talk to them. Just a couple minutes saying, this is the reason why we're on strike, just so you know, it's nothing personal. Now, I know some people lost their temper with the professors and stuff like that. And in our case, we were just happy to be on campus. That's where all of our activities were at that point. So, the difference is, also in the late 90s, I witnessed a post office strike. Now, the post office is run by the Teamsters Union. And they have a certain reputation for making things a bit spicy, and there's a lot of charged energy in the air. But there is also that sense of restraint, where we're not going to make a move unless they make a move, and that was what kept the strike from blowing up, that détente. In modern protests, they seem to go to the extreme very quickly. Violence seems to happen. People want to get their frustrations out. So, reduction in crime rate, good. Possibly due to the interference of social justice warriors, because it sure as heck isn't because of an increase of the standard of living. But what we're paying for that is this increased anxiety in society, this bigger tendency for people to want to flare up and flare out of control. Riots are happening all the time. I mean, a lot of the people that are listening to me are from the Toronto area, not 100%, and we all know how big the Toronto Maple Leafs are. And it's one of Silverlight's biggest fears that the Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup. Because there's this built-up tension in the air that's just been festering for decades and decades and decades. Vancouver lost the Stanley Cup, and they rioted in the streets. Montreal won the Stanley Cup back in the 90s, and they rioted in the streets. Can you imagine Toronto? This is a powder keg ready to go off. I mean, decades of futility and people looking. I remember when the Blue Jays won, and people were going up and down celebrating in the streets, but they were honking their horns. They were doing pretty cool stuff. Nobody was losing their head. They were screaming and yelling and celebrating and stuff like that. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, that's a lot more hardcore of a crowd. Now, it is true that the Argonauts, the CFL team, have won a couple championships, but they don't have the same appeal that the Toronto Maple Leafs do. And as I've said, we've gained this reduction in crime at the expense of extra tension in the air. Kind of reminds you a little bit of a police state. You're not willing to commit a crime because you're worried about the consequences, not the jail time, but all the other consequences. That gets into your subconscious. We've been subconsciously programmed, and we only let it out when we know there's thousands of other people that are also going to go along with it. A few years back at the G20 summit, again, we saw this tension in the air flare out into open riots where people were kicking cars and breaking them in the streets. And for reasons I don't understand, protesters showed up on Sunday and were surprised that the police were rather heavy handed. Well, yeah, you just spent the previous day breaking everything around you. The police are gonna come down on you. It only makes sense. This free floating tension in the air is because people are feeling trapped. They're all feeling the world is against them. And you know what? It's not paranoia when it's true. Some people call me a conspiracy theorist. I just like to think of myself as a person that can see the puppet strings. And right now I'm seeing those strings are being pulled very tight. And we are being good puppets. But every once in a while a puppet kind of goes rogue. It's not a conspiracy when it really happens. It's not paranoia when it's real. And if an Iron Man did come down and try to establish order, he'd probably be ripped apart by this crowds in the street. If he wasn't arrested, because, superheroes have this tendency to commit a lot of property damage. That is also one of the reasons I think people are escaping into this superhero fantasy, is because we lack role models in our daily lives. Sure, we have parents, sure, we have friends, but I mean real, proper role models. At one point, we had politicians as role models, we had kings as role models, we had actors as role models, policemen as role models. Every single one has been assassinated to death, and that was for justifiable reasons. Kings and queens were found to be a little bit loopy. Actors and actresses, wow, the scandals there are off the limits. And police just did not serve and protect. So, when you're faced with a militarized police force that does not serve and protect, but is just simply there to lock people up, kick ass, and take names, and a whole lot of people have been locked up for a whole lot of time, and a bad economic situation. Mix that gently, season liberally with a little bit of anxiety because the pandemic hasn't gone away yet. And it just might be coming back stronger. So, we're sitting on a powder keg. As long as we don't have too many public activities, by public I mean like the Toronto Maple Leafs winning Stanley Cup level, it won't be a problem. People will simmer down and we'll find our way in the new world. People, as a general rule, just aren't ready to go out and lead a revolution. People are too comfortable under the present guard. You have to be, when you looked at revolutions, you look at the United States, their revolution from the United Kingdom. You look at France's revolution. These are people who started off, they were feeling very repressed. They were feeling hemmed in by society. And one spark lit it all off. The Russians, they were feeling very repressed. And they overthrew their Tsar. And they put in a provisional government that was then overthrown by the Bolsheviks. But the Bolsheviks had enough popular support to keep the government going for decades. This is the problem we are up against. And quite frankly, I'm very, very nervous that's out there is somebody with a lighter. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. I encourage everybody, find productive ways to deal with that tension. And we all have it. It's a natural thing. We've all been through stress. This lockdown has been tough. The past 10 years have been tough. Heck, some of my listeners, your whole lives have been tough. And there's no knocking you against that. You've survived it. Surviving is the most important thing. That's why the advice I'm giving you now is your next stage of survival is to be the gray man. Be the calm one. Be the one that fades into the background, that isn't noticed, and don't be at the places where violence is going to break out. If you know something's going to happen, if you know there's going to be a huge crowd of people that might get out of control, better to stay home. Because you know what? I value each and every one of you. Silverlight values their listeners. And I hope each one of you tunes in each and every show. Till we have a real Iron Man, till we have a real, Spider-Man who actually intends to do good, which I just don't see happening. Elon Musk and what's his name, Bezos from Amazon are more interested in being Buck Rogers than they are doing anything for the planet. But until then, it's up to us to fight the tension. We have to be the ones to keep the fire from blazing out of control. Because that's the truth. The enlightened ones are the ones that see the danger coming. And we're not superheroes. We cannot throw ourselves in front of it and say, I will stop you. No, we have to be just a regular guy, regular girl, regular person out in the street just doing their thing. You know what? We have to encourage others to do the same. Because we're not in a position for revolution at the moment. And quite frankly, the way things are right now, the world is going to change. And we have to make sure that low crime rate stays the same, because after the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the National Socialist Party getting elected into Germany, all that sort of thing, the next thing that came were purges. And we know we're not the ones sitting in the states of power saying, I need to eliminate 1/10 of all people, so let's decimate the population, which is literally what decimate means. Remove 1/10. It's something to think about, though. Lower crime rates, higher propensity for people to riot. Interesting connection. But anyways, we hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Silverlight Show. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share. And we hope you all have a fantastic day.